at Oslo University Hospital with a focus on medical image analysis. With expertise in 3D, 2D image processing, medical image segmentation and registration, deep learning, machine learning, and medical imaging, he supervises and leads PhD projects focused on AI solution for medical image analysis and navigation tasks. As a project leader for the whole of his project, he earned the prestigious Microsoft 2017 Global Health Innovation Award. His PhD research focused on finding improved methods for computation and visualization of 3D anatomy blood vessel structures in the liver and aortic section. Conducted at Oslo University Hospital. Additionally, he has worked as a research engineer at the National University of Singapore Bioinformatics Institute, A*STAR, where he developed innovative 3D, 2D image processing techniques for microscopic images. His research and development efforts in medical imaging, mixed reality for health, and emerging digital technologies for health have made significant contribution to his field. He has also received numerous awards, including Best Innovative Idea Award, Best Project Prize, and prestigious Marie Curie Early Stage Researchers Fellowship, reflecting his outstanding research achievements and innovative ideas in the field of medical image analysis. Welcome to the stage, sir.
Can you hear me? Yeah? Perfect. Thanks for the warm welcome. Thank you all. And it was, I was surprised to hear myself about what people are saying about myself, but yeah, thank you. So today I would like to present on medical image understanding for surgery, an experience from Oslo University Hospital, or what we see about that. So just to start, okay, you heard who I am, but just to give a glimpse about my past, I am Rahul Prasanna Kumar. I did my bachelor's at Model Engineering College here. I am from Kochi, actually. So it was during my bachelor's project, which was at SET Trivandrum, where under the supervision of Keshav Das, who actually motivated me to go forward in medical image analysis side. And he was the one who suggested me to go for my master's at UCL, and otherwise I would not have done it. So I will have to thank him first, because he was the one who led me in this path. And afterwards, I went on to National University of Singapore, worked there for a year, and then later on went for my PhD in Norway and kind of settled there with after postdoc and researcher now. So all this time, my focus had been on medical image analysis, on image processing at the beginning, segmentation, now planning, navigation, and so on, taking everything into surgery or clinical use. But what is medical image understanding? It was working before. Okay, I'll just use this slide. So what is medical image understanding? And that's a big question, because usually you say medical image analysis, yeah, that includes everything. So what is exactly medical image understanding? And like anyone else, I asked ChatGPT, what is medical image understanding? And just tell me in a concise way what that is. And it gave a quite good answer, actually. So just to highlight some points there is that It's use of advanced computer vision, machine learning to interpret medical images to help diagnose and treat various medical conditions. That's exactly what it is. To analyze, extract meaningful information from medical images. That's all about that, medical image understanding. To understand what the images are, understand what you can get from that, that's useful for the clinician. And then finally, the most important, assist medical professionals in making accurate diagnosis and treatment plans, and ultimately improving patient care. That's the most important. The whole idea should be that you improve patient care. And that should be the focus. And that's where I'm going to focus my presentation. So how do you improve patient care? And under medical image understanding, for surgery specifically, you go that in these particular topics. And that is segmentation, that was explained yesterday very nicely, Phineas. Then visualization, I'll get to that. Planning and navigation. So these are the topics that I'll be discussing today. But I'll talk about that with some of the work that we have done specific to liver and heart surgeries that we are working on at the intervention center. But before I go, I just give a couple of lines about intervention center. The intervention center is, we are a division inside the hospital. We are a very special division, I would say, because we are not just clinicians there. We are scientists like me, engineers, software developers, all working together, radiographers, radiologists, everyone is there. Because we have operating theaters, we have integrated intraoperative CT, intraoperative MR, many other things available there inside our division, which are on daily basis used for clinical purposes, but it's available for research. And that's the big thing. And all the clinicians are always available for research, and their main aim is research and development of new innovative technologies that could be used clinically. So that's a really good place in the sense that when I just go get a coffee or something in the main corner, it's just, we just discuss with others, all different kind of people like scientists and clinicians on what are their problems or how can we solve them on a daily basis. So that's what I think is really good in the sense that you can actually take the final use to the clinic. So here, let me focus first on the liver, mainly on liver at the beginning. So what is liver? Liver is the largest organ in the human body. And you see, it's really complicated structure. You have the portal vein that's actually going into the liver, that's supplying in the blood. You have the hepatic veins that is actually taking out the blood. Alongside you have the arteries going in along the portal veins. You have the bile ducts. So it's really complicated structure. And if you have a tumor there, you need to really understand what's around that. You need to understand all the blood vessels around that, how to go navigate between those blood vessels to understand how to plan your surgery. So liver, it's found that by KEYNOTES that it can be divided into 8 independent functional segments. So what does that mean? So it means that each of those segments have an input and an output in terms of blood. So there's a blood inflow and outflow. So that means that if you cut one part of it, it's totally fine because it's an independent section. It will not affect the others. And because of that, that's really revolutionizing the surgery. So you don't need to cut more parts just need to cut that segment, for instance. So cancer in liver mainly happens in two ways, primary and secondary. So primary cancer is the hepatocellular carcinoma, for instance. It's the fifth most common cancer. It's third most common cause of cancer mortality. So quite important to actually see how to get rid of that. And then the other is the secondary cancer. So that is going, you have the primary cancer that is actually in the colon, and it actually goes into the liver and metastasizes there. So you have the colorectal liver metastasis. And that also happens a lot. You have more than 500,000 cases per year worldwide. It's quite a lot. And we focus a lot at the center where I'm coming from on colorectal liver metastasis. So how do you treat the cancer? So the main way of treating cancer is resection. So resection is basically surgery. So you see here, there's a tumor, and as I said, it's like between mini segments, right? So you take off that much part. So that's basically the surgery, how they do it. And you see that if you just do chemotherapy, the 5-year survival rate is found to be less than 1%. So you have to combine it with surgery. Because surgery, you have a 5-year survival rate more than 45%. It might seem low, but it's still high in terms of all the other cancer survival rates. So the surgery itself, as I said, that's the main curative way of doing it, but it could be done in different ways. You have the anatomy resection, and that's what I told earlier about, that you have the different segments, and in that segment, you just cut out depending on where the tumor is. So you just cut that independent region. But you have also what's called a parenchyma sparing resection. It's a resection that's aiming to spare as much parenchyma as possible. Parenchyma is the liver tissue. So basically you scoop out like an ice cream. Okay, maybe not like an ice cream. But you scoop out basically the area where the tumor is. So you have that much liver left for the patient. And that liver is a really interesting organ because it regenerates. Because you cut a part of the liver and, tell the surgery is over and the patient goes home, but after a while the liver regenerates. So that's a really good thing of liver. Okay, this might look gruesome, but necessary to show because liver surgery can be done in two ways. You do it either as open surgery or laparoscopic surgery. And probably by showing these images, I don't have to say more on the pros and cons, I guess. Because you see the cosmetic need in open surgery and the post-operative care in open surgery is much, much more than laparoscopic surgeries. What we see at our center is that they basically go the next day after surgery. So at the intervention center, we mainly focus on the laparoscopic liver surgeries. And 70% of those surgeries are parenchyma sparing. So the one that I said before, to leave as much good part of the liver left. So all this laparoscopic liver resection, parenchyma sparing, all of that needs much better planning. So you need to understand exactly where the tumor is, what are the structures around it, how to actually take it into the surgery, how to plan it properly, patient specifically. And because you are laparoscopic, you need to understand how the tools are moving in with respect to the organ. That's where navigation comes, for instance. So all these lead to increased need for computer-assisted liver surgery. how is it done today, right? So now, this is actually our surgeon. Usually what's done is that, okay, you look at images. Okay, like CT, for instance, the most common, and maybe combined with other MRIs if it's available. Look at it all together, understand where the tumor is on the 2D slices, and then you kind of start creating a 3D model in your mind. Okay, I think that tumor is over here. Okay, I can go to surgery and plan how to cut that. And once the plan is made, he goes into the surgery and does the surgery. But it's not just one person. In laparoscopic surgeries, you have two surgeons standing on both sides doing the surgery and assisting each other. But each of them is creating a model in their head, right? And there is no guarantee that they have the same model in their head, because it could be different. One might think that it is in segment, it's between segment 2, 3, but other might think that, okay, it's only in segment 2. And so they might have some confusion at the surgery because of that. But so it's at most important that they go with the same plan. And for that, you need 3D visualizations, you need planning, you need navigation, if possible, inside. So that's where the medical image understanding comes in. To solve it, as I said, you need to go from the CT-MR images, you need to go to imaging, of course, then you have the segmentation, which creates the 3D models, and from which you can do resection planning, for instance. So traditionally, we used to do it with semi-automatic methods. So here on the left is actually how a semi-automatic method was actually created for liver segmentation. On the right, you have, actually it was my PhD project, where we worked on a fast blood vessel segmentation for liver. So it was all implemented into 3D Slicer. 3D Slicer is an open source software, so everyone can actually use it. But this was many years ago. And obviously, for all clinicians don't want to spend even that time in front of it, planning. Because they feel that, okay, they just want to go directly into surgery. So how can we do faster? That was the question. And apart from that, there was the resection planning. My friend Rafael, who is also at NTNU, he was the one who implemented this one for his PhD. And this is also in 3D Slicer, where you can actually, if you have the 3D models, the surgeon can sit and plan the surgery. So you can actually just move the plane, understand exactly where to cut, and in 3D, the surgeons actually see which are the blood vessels that he will cut, what is the resection margin, all that. And gives a quite good idea about how to take it forward. But can these be automated? And the answer is yes, obviously. And I think more than me, almost everyone here would know much more about AI, I guess. You're all experts in AI. Almost everyone is expert in AI now. So AI is definitely the possibility for automation. But we didn't want to focus too much on the AI part, but still, of course, the segmentation is AI. So I'll just focus on some of the papers that we did. So we had initially worked on some liver segmentation algorithms, mainly from public data sets, just to see how it is, and how we could actually implement it internally. So here we kind of worked on understanding the influence of parameter choices that would influence the segmentation, and making more a simpler unit if possible. Those were studied. And even with initial work, we could see we get dyes of quite high, like 90 dyes. So that was quite nice for liver. And So we found that we could almost make it as good as possible. So the surgeons require only very little correction. Afterwards, we went for blood vessel segmentations. So the blood vessel segmentations, we kind of focused on making that automatic, but also understanding how the earlier methods were based on vessel enhancement. So you have the techniques of vessel enhancement, looking at the tubular structures in the image, mathematical equations to actually look for them. How would that affect deep learning? And for that, we actually we did multiple ways. One of the things that we found to be the best was there were a lot of different vessel enhancement techniques. So we found that if we combine them either at the pre-stage before unit or after unit, that was basically the best way forward. That gave the best results. So you could see, for example, this is vesselness, just applying on using one vesselness algorithm and a combined vesselness algorithm. You can see that the more white, that means the more it did not detect. So you have better vessel structures when you combine different vessel enhancement techniques. So another work is actually on automating liver segmentation, but earlier I talked about in CT, but we now look into more MR images. So we had luckily some MR images available at the hospital through the COMET project, and we utilized that actually for this study. So here, one of the main things we looked at was actually whether post-processing with level set, because everyone is actually talking about, okay, when we look at other papers, it was like, okay, we use liver segmentation. At the end, post-processing of level set was actually applied. How well could you actually do that? And we didn't, level set is actually, you have a lot of parameters that you can actually put in. You have the energy functions of going out and going in. But we wanted to automate as much as possible. We made a lot of trials and understood this, some parameters that actually could be fixed. So we applied it as a post-processing step. And we found that level set enhances the output, yes, but only if it is under segmentation. Like if you have less that is detected from the AI. If you have more, then it usually just leaks more. So it was not perfect, but it was still good. And we tried also like this, the AI versus AI ground truth. That means you have the deep learning output, and the clinician is actually going to work on that and correct it. So then you compare the results. And then it was actually 95% perfect. And when you compare with the level set output, that's after AI level set, and then doing a ground truth from that, you see that it is 0.05 dice less. It's not much. And then we compare the two ground truths of the same image created by the same clinician at different time points and compared them actually. So it was two ground truths, one after AI, one after the post-processing as well. And compared that, and we found that was 0.97. So he himself was not agreeing with him, right? There's a 3% dice. This is well-known fact. You will never, there is always like a intra-observer and inter-observer variance in these. So you cannot completely take dice as the final score. So, after that, we also tried to work on liver and the tumor. And the tumor is very well defined in MRI. So we thought, okay, we'll work on the same data. We work on MRI. But we found that to be extremely hard because tumor occupies extremely low area in the whole image. So that's like liver itself in a 3D sense, it occupies only like 4 or 5%, maximum 10% of the image. So rest of that is background, right? But in terms of tumor, it's less than 1%. It's probably 0.5% of the whole image. So there is not much that the deep learning can actually work on. It's not learning much. So that we came to know about that here. But what we did is actually we went for a cascade approach where the first one actually crops the liver and the second one focuses it within that area again. So you had higher percentage of the tumor there, so you could actually work on that better. And we implemented a whole system for that so that the clinician can directly check it and actually take it into see the 3D visualizations of that. And what we found is also that we compared to, it's not clear here actually. Yeah, we had two sets, like one just comparison from ground truths from before, and another compared to expert correction. So expert corrected the AI afterwards, as I said before. And we found that you got, like, when compared to ground truth, the dice was 0.94, but compared to expert correction, it was 0.994, 0.994 actually. So that's like 100% almost, right? So the experts corrected very little. So that kind of says that when the expert already sees a segmentation, he's just trying to correct that in the sense that he's just looking for whatever is missed and just correct it. But if he's doing from scratch, he might do much more, maybe much more than what that's needed for that case in a way. So apart from that, now that was the segmentation. Now I talk about the planning part of it. So the planning part, here again, it's a project that Fauzi mentioned yesterday, a live project with NTNU, where Rafael is leading it, where again, we tried to make the resection planning much more intuitive. So earlier you saw like balls to be moved and everything. Here it's much more intuitive. You actually just move one point and you kind of get a new curve accordingly, quite fast. And kind of reduces the interactions with the 3D model, make a quicker plan. But all of this, even with all of that, the surgeons will have to view like that. So at the surgery, then the surgeon will be like, okay, you have, that's actually Rafael long ago. You have a computer that was set up, and then, okay, he says, okay, move the liver like this, move it like that. So he kind of understands how his plan was and actually see how that was, how he could cut. So we thought we needed a better visualization, a better way for the surgeon to see the model and better way for him to interact directly at the surgery. So that was a challenge. How we solved that is with mixed reality. So we brought in HoloLens, mixed reality glasses. And mixed reality glasses, we could see, as you see here, you see the 3D model in the surgery. The surgeon can directly look at it, interact with it. There is no sterile problems. You directly see it. And you can just place the 3D model here, walk around that. You can actually share between people. So there's a lot of advantages. So you brought in all the segmentations, the CT models, the surface models, resection plan, everything into the mixed reality. So HoloLens. So this is the HoloLens 1. I just want to show what is in there. So what you see here is the advanced sensors of the HoloLens looking at, so it actually takes in the surrounding, kind of does a scan of the surrounding, and it kind of reads how the shape of the room is, what are the structures there, and so on. And you have the transparent display. That means that you see the real world, but you see your virtual models as well. That's very much different from the virtual reality, right? Virtual reality, you don't see the real world. You actually just wear it, you can play. Maybe you can do for planning, but you cannot take it into surgery because then the surgeon will not see the patient, right? Or the equipments. So you needed something that like transparent. And of course, it has a holographic processing unit. That means that all the computations are done internally. You don't have to connect to an external computer or anything. And it has a direction-based sound, so that means that you have a 3D model there, and if that 3D model is like speaking, for instance, you hear it as if it's speaking from there. And if you move to a different part of the room, you'll hear it as it is. So it's more realistic. So that was the HoloLens 1. But now you have the HoloLens 2. It's way more better in terms of the processing power. The first one had a lot of problems in terms of all the processing and everything, all the equipments inside were here. So there was a huge weight onto your nose. So right now it's much more ergonomic, easy to wear. So yeah. So here is some examples of what we did in the mixed reality. So all that I explained before, like the resection planning, and you can actually look at it. You can do the resection planning itself. You can make it small, big, and so on, place it where you want, and also see the CT images. So the CT images, you don't need a separate screen in the surgery. You just say, okay, put it onto the wall there. You can make it as big as you want, as big as the wall is, and actually see it very closely. So there's so many advantages. And another big thing is that the sharing. You see multiple surgeons, multiple people can look at the same model and plan together. So they can discuss, they can point onto it. So there's much better planning possibilities, patient-specific planning, and this helps in that particular patient's safety, improving the safety. Yeah, you can see here an example of the surgeons looking at it, how they're controlling it and so on, and they're discussing on that particular patient, for instance. Here is another example where you see like an avatar working on it, and that person is in a remote location. So even if that person is not there, you can actually connect through the cloud, and that person can come in and discuss with you that planning. So the help of that is that even if the expert is not available at the place, the expert can actually give his opinion. So that's still amazing. Yeah. The question is, it's cool, but is it clinically good? So that was a big question that we were facing. So we did some papers, we studied something about that. We looked at first whether it gives a spatial understanding. Does it give better spatial understanding? So for that, we did a study with a lot of clinical pass outs in a way. So they were clinical doctors looking at liver. One way is the traditional way. They were looking at the MR images, and there was artificial tumor that we had put in at different segments, the 8 segments that I said before. So they were getting some like images, and then they have to say which segment is the liver, is the tumor, which segment of the liver. And the same thing for the 3D model. And we were looking at accuracy, how accurately they can say, and how much time they are taking to understand that. So what we found is that it's equal accuracy. You equally understand where it is by MRI and by 3D models as well. But we found out it's 4 times faster with HoloLens. People were like just looking and then immediately saying, okay, it's at this segment. But for the MRI or CT, they had to just scroll through the slices, just have to make sure whether they are making the right choice. So that was an obvious advantage. So it kind of shows that much faster way get to your point, get to understand the three-dimensional structure. So here is just a graph showing like how much time they took for different segments. Yeah, so you see it's significantly shorter for HoloLens. So another one is actually we tried taking it into planning and during surgery as well. And after surgery, we kind of asked the surgeons qualitatively how good they felt about it, whether it was useful, whether it's cumbersome to use or some. So what we found was that they perceived it to be very useful. That was obvious, but we wanted to actually record it. And they also said that, okay, yeah, I'm going to recommend it to other people. And it found that it was very useful for MDT meetings, that's multidisciplinary team meetings. So that means that, like always, in the case is that if you have a surgery that is planned just before the surgery or a day before, surgeons, radiologists, other experts in the field sit together and discuss the case and they plan. And having a 3D model there that all of them can see together was very useful. We also actually kind of did a study at a conference. We gave to many participants at the conference, there were like 62 participants from 22 different countries at that conference. We gave them the HoloLens, asked them to use it, and then found that everyone rated it to be good. But the interesting part was that there was a lot of doctors and there were non-doctors as well. We found that the non-doctors were more critical about the technology because the doctors were looking at, oh, it's really good, I can use it in the surgery. But the non-doctors were looking at the technology side. Oh, it's like, it's not properly sitting there. It's when I move, I can see it shaking a bit. I mean, they were more critical. It's understandable because we as a technology people, we're looking at how to solve the technology problems, right? We see the problems first. But the clinical people were looking at the solutions. That was actually good to see. So now we talked about the planning and visualization. So can we actually provide better guidance during surgery? So guidance during surgery is actually understanding the 3D model, how it is with the patient at that time. So if you take the tool there and if you touch the lever, for instance, where are you touching in the 3D model? Understanding where it is. So that is very important. So for that, we had the EU project where NTNU was also part of. It was with many partners around EU, looking at all the different aspects. So the aspect I was talking right now was the segmentation, 3D model, visualization, surgery planning. But we brought in a lot more. Biomechanical modeling of the 3D models, of the 3D liver. Using that for registration. So registration means the liver is moving. So the moved liver compared to the preoperative liver that was taken before, how it is, those kind of things. Taking it into surgery using intraoperative imaging like ultrasound or DynaCT or something. And laparoscope, you have the stereo laparoscopic images. How can you utilize that? Those kind of things. Tracking the equipments. So you have the Polaris trackers or calcination systems that we used for visualizing it. So bringing everything together. That was the aim of the project. So for that, and with that, you could actually say, like, okay, the surgeon is picking at one point, and you kind of see where it is. So you need the registration. So the registration is actually here done like a landmark-based registration. So landmark-based registration is you have two things of the same, and you say there are these points here, and I know that these points are the same on this part as well. And then you mark those two, and then you can register these two together. So that's landmark-based registration. And you do that here. It's a rigid registration method. And you actually utilize, you see in terms of, okay, this is where the liver is, and okay, the tool is touching here. Then you can see that the tool is touching, okay, this is where I'm touching. so that you can actually understand exactly what it is. So here is what we did in the calcination system, where you can actually augment the 3D model in the liver. So instead of HoloLens, you see it on the screen. That's augmented reality. So you actually see the 3D model onto the liver, and then you can cut it. So you can see, okay, with that underneath these structures are there. So how accurate is it? Because it relies on the registration, right? How accurate is that? So we tried looking into that. So all this requires the navigation system. So navigation system is actually bringing in all that, tracking the different equipments, and you have a lot of transformations. Because you have the 3D model, that's in its own three-dimensional space, coordinate system. You have the patient who is lying in the actual coordinate system. You need to understand how that fits with the patient. That's one transformation. You need to understand the laparoscopic camera, how that view is in terms of the patient. You need to understand the laparoscopic tool, which has some markers which could be kind of tracked with this Polaris tracking system, and take that in. See, all of transformations should be taken together to understand how it's in the patient. So we did like an accuracy test, first on an iceberg phantom. That's really accurately cut phantom. And we have a liver phantom, a really jelly kind of liver. And you have actual liver, where we tried the registration. So what we found is that obviously the phantom, which is really correct, that is the one which has the least registration error. The liver phantom is just above, not bad, but in real life, you see the errors have gone up. The errors are like 11, 13. So is it still usable? It's a big question, because it's not, because the surgeons say they need it to be like less than 5 millimeters. Otherwise, it's not exactly useful for them. So we wanted to see whether we can improve that. And also we wanted to see what is the effect of, because right now there was no intraoperative images used here, right? Can we bring in intraoperative images? Like we have a state-of-the-art operating room where you have the intraoperative CT, intraoperative cone beam CT, all of which could be used for surgery. So we wanted to see whether we can actually bring in. So, yeah, we see our radiographer chilling in the CT gantry, usual scene. And this actual experiment was done on porcine models to understand how it is. So what we saw is that, this is obvious, but we didn't know exactly how much. This is the liver before surgery or before the laparoscopic, so pre-operative images, the image made from that. The top is the intraoperative images of the liver. So CT is taken during surgery, then you take the 3D model at that time. When you superimpose, you see that because at laparoscopy you have to have air inside your abdomen. You have to inflate the abdominal wall. So because of that, that is putting pressure onto the liver and compressing the liver. And you see that you see that in the image, that the liver has gone down, it has compressed. And you see here as well, it has been pushed back as well. So that's a major change in the anatomy. So you cannot exactly just take in the preoperative images, because there's a lot of change. And you need to do some real good registrations of that. And what you could see is that there was a big error. But you could still take down by half with intraoperative images. Another thing is I said about the landmark-based registration, right? You have to fix the points. And fixing the points, you kind of see, like, the surgeon have to say, okay, in this liver, I see the liver here, and I see the other liver that needs to be put in place. Okay, this is that point, that is this point. But the surgeon thinks in his mind that it's all correct, but it's not. What we understood is that there's a huge variation between surgeons on where they think exactly the point is. So you cannot just take in directly like that, right? So that kind of registration is actually not perfect, but that is the way you do. How else can you do? We wanted to check that actually. Can we bring down the registration error? Can we take it down? How can we do that? And for that, we went into looking at the whole navigation system. How can we incorporate the interoperative images? This was a study done together with the Siemens. So they collaborated a lot on this project. And what we did is actually have interoperative update, but with trackers that could be seen inside. Like you have where the register, because the most important part is the tumor. How to get where the location of the tumor is. And around the tumor, we tried putting some points and understand how exactly it is. And that brought down the registration error to 4 millimeters. So that now is actually the safest way to do, and it is registering in a way that you can clinically use it. So the accuracy now is less than 5 millimeters. So you see, this is kind of the small error that you get, that it's less than 5 millimeters. Here is something I want to show into future, what we are currently also looking at. This is how we can incorporate mixed reality as well with the tracking tools and the navigation. Here's a simulator of the laparoscopic. You can see me actually just moving the tools, and you see the tools moving accordingly. And you see where in relation to the liver is. So this is what we aim to do. We're still in the process of it. So all of this is, right now I'll just go into a bit into the heart as well, what we did there. So heart, just talking about the heart. Heart is a very neatly designed organ. It's really good organ in terms of it's actually a double pump 4-chamber organ separated by valves. That means that you have the good blood or the blood coming in, and then you need to, that's oxygenated in the liver, in the lungs. And then it goes into the heart, pumped back into the organs. That goes back into the left ventricle, then it's pumped back into lungs for re-oxygenation. So that's basically the function of the heart. So it's a plumbing system in a way. But what happens in congenital heart disease, it's like it's a crazy plumber who has actually made the connections. All the connections are everywhere. It's not going how it's supposed to be. You have where the good blood is supposed to come, the bad blood comes in. So it's a huge mess. And these are really small kids, and you have to correct it as soon as possible. So you need to do a very good planning. And there are hundreds of varieties of different ways where the abnormality can be. You need to correct that. So planning is very important, and it's complicated surgical procedures. How do they do that? So again, they have these MDT meetings, like what I said before. You have multiple discipline people sitting together, cardiologists, surgeons, radiographers, radiologists, not radiographers, radiologists. They all look at the CT images and everything that they have of that patient. Try to take as many images as possible. Try to look them all at once. Then everyone will be creating 3D models in their mind. And as before, that might not be accurate. And this is where it really has to be exactly accurate. Everyone has to understand the 3D model exactly as it is. So planning is important. This is done in two ways. The 3D model, you obviously know about the HoloLens visualization, but it's also the 3D printing. And traditionally, the segmentations are done with ITK Snap or 3D Slicer integrated softwares there. Spend some time and you get the registration. We also looked at how we can actually automate that. Tried with some public data, testing on private data, how that is. And there, what we found is that because the public data was actually very coarse, it didn't have all the exact details that we required in a way, because it was smooth and it was made fast in a way. So you kind of miss some of the main details, like some coronary arteries that was going like that. So those kind of things are something that were missed. And then you have, you see the segmentation time. We checked how would it reduce the time, and obviously, when you have some kind of output already, and if you can work on that, they are reducing the segmentation time. Because before, if they had to create manually or semi-automatically these ones with the traditional methods, then they had to spend like hours on it. But when you have some kind of output that could be given to the clinicians, they can reduce the time. They reduce it to just 20 minutes or something like that, which is still a lot, but still they are not using hours of their time. So 3D printing. So 3D printing is heavily used. This is to understand the feel of the organ. You see the organ, how it is. You cut through the organ, and then you see the interior structures, and that allows the surgeons to actually plan the surgery in a better way. You get to see in the actual size. If it's a small kid, the heart would be only so much in a way. So you kind of have to look at it in real life, how it is. Okay, feel it. How can I approach that surgery? How do I reach that place, and so on. And that you will have to cut the 3D model, as you said. But cutting the 3D model, if you cut it in a different in an angle that was not correct, then you'll have to do the 3D printing again, which is expensive to do. 3D printing is not that cheap still. It is cheaper than before, but it's still not that cheap that you can just go on printing. So the solution again is the mixed reality. You can take it into mixed reality. You can of course share between everyone, and of course you can cut it as well in the 3D model. And that could be done in any different direction, how much ever time you want. It's not going to affect. So here is an example. You're slicing the heart. So you can see that you can just move the ball and actually cut however you want, and see the interior structures of the heart, which is very required for the planning. So here is a paper that we looked at how it will be useful for the surgeons, and obviously we found it was quite useful. And here you can see that the surgeons are planning the surgery, moving. You can actually make, though the actual heart is only so much, you can make it as big as you want, and just maybe even walk into the 3D model and see how it is. So that's an advantage here. Another thing is actually we also looked at taking it forward in terms of how we can actually bring echocardiograms into the mixed reality. So because right now they'll actually look like this, and then they have to look that. Maybe they want it somewhere close by so they can actually see. So we were looking at that. So one of the things is actually we tried recreating real life live view of the echocardiograms. So live view, it's a 3D echo. So we were 3D rendering it in real time and visualizing it. So you can see it right beside the patient. Apart from that, we also looked at robotic interventions. So there is a PhD working on it right now on robotic-assisted echocardiography. This is a system that he built with the robotic arm. With this, it's to assist a TEE probe. TEE is transesophageal echocardiography. So that's where the echocardiogram, instead of transthoracic, where you actually do like that, the ultrasound is actually inserted like this inside. And it has to be controlled from outside. That actually goes from the stomach up into the heart. So you can see interiorly. That needs a lot of training. The person who is doing that really needs to be really trained. And also there's a lot of ergonomic problems, like you have to control it and keep it steady and so on. And also, this is done while the fluoroscopy is taken. So that means that there is an exposure to radiation. So we wanted to reduce that. So with this robotic system, with the teleoperating system over here, that could be a bit farther away from the actual scene. So they reduce the radiation exposure, so no ergonomic issues that comes out of it. And we take advantage of the teleoperation. So in effect, this could be in a different place in a way. You could have it in, for example, the patient, if the robot is here, could be controlled from Trivandrum or Oslo maybe, right? So that's how it could be done. Okay, we haven't reached that as such, but that could be done. Here is an example of how the robot is functioning. This is a prototype. So all of that could be controlled, and the robotic arm actually understands how to move, and you can see the probe is moved by the arm, and you assist exactly how much that has to be gone in and so on. All that could be controlled. So I guess I'll conclude with that by saying that all this kind of shows the importance of medical image understanding. Medical image understanding is quite important for improving patient care. I'll show one more thing. Here is, apart from liver and heart, is orthopedic. It's a case where there is actually a deformality at the femur head over here. If you want to understand that, this is diagnostics, where the patient is lying on the table, CT was taken, and we did the segmentations of the pelvic and the femur, and the surgeon is moving the leg, and because you have actually the tracking systems and you have placed it inside, you can see like an X-ray vision. The surgeon sees the 3D model of the bone from outside, and when the leg is moved, then when this hits that bone there, then the patient says, okay, I have pain. Then you can see exactly where the pain is and why. You can confirm it. So this is really, we are very excited about that. We'll be doing some more patient experiments actually in March now. When I get back, we'll be having a couple of experiments and then writing a paper on that actually. Yeah, thank you. And I actually have a HoloLens. I can see whether I can connect it and show you something, if possible, if I have time. We can see, and if it is possible. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir, for your enchanting words. And now let's get into the interactive sessions. So questions, anyone? Okay, yes.
Thank you, Rahul. Very nice presentation. Can you comment a little bit upon this DICE values? What exactly are those?
Yeah, DICE value is mainly how much overlap is there between two outputs, like two input and an output, for instance, or ground truth and the result. So you have two images and you overlap them together, and then you see how much of an overlap is there. So overlap in the sense that Um, this is you have a circle that is correct, and another circle that is a little smaller, for instance, but that's the output. If you all have them together, then you see that there is some parts missing, right? So you see, you get a percentage of value.
There is a pixel difference calculation?
Yes,
Or
it's a pixel-wise difference calculation.
it takes into account the full image?
Yeah, because it's basically calculating how many pixels are correctly segmented, how many are not, compared to the whole image.
Okay, thank you.
So, any other questions?
Thank you, Rahul. I think it's impressive track of works. I was thinking about this, the problems part you're talking about. You said about the surgeons being not, the surgeons being very open and non-surgeons being not open, right? When you mean non-surgeons, do you mean the doctors but not the surgeons, or regular people?
You mean the study where
Yeah?
it was engineers.
Engineers, okay.
Yeah, because it was a conference at European, I think, endoscopic surgery conference. And mainly it was surgeons there present, but there were a lot of companies, a lot of engineers working for the companies. So they were more skeptical
I see.
in the sense, but they still rated to be very high. It was like out of 6, if the surgeons said 5 or 6, then they were saying 4 or 5,
Okay.
right? But you could see the difference, and they were saying more comments to it,
That's-
constructive comments actually.
And what about this fatigue factor? Was it something very new for the doctors when it was new technology?
I think
Yeah.
actually when they used the first HoloLens during surgery, there was a huge fatigue problem because it was not ergonomically designed.
Yeah.
You had a lot of weight onto the front, and it was just hanging on. It's like having a really heavy glasses,
Yeah.
and you had to have it throughout the surgery. I actually commend the surgeon who had tried that, because he was there like 1.5 hours or 2 hours with that. He had a headache afterwards, really bad headache. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. Maybe just wearing when the time is needed. But the HoloLens 2 is much better. It has much more better weight distribution. This is the HoloLens 2. And you have, before, all of the processing power here and the battery, everything was on this side. Now it is much more distributed. You have a strap on top. So everything allows that it's much more ergonomically designed. So you don't feel that much weight on your nose or anything. So this is much better to use.
And can you comment on the cognitive load? I mean, you have to think about the physical objects. You have to think about the things that is coming in the augmented reality. Was there a big difference when it comes to the cognitive load of planning the surgery?
In terms of actually how it looks in the virtual?
Yeah.
Yeah. It looked actually much better in a way. You were surprised to see how good information you get. But lightings in the room can sometimes be a problem. Especially in a surgery room, if it's an open surgery, for instance, then you have so much light that is shined on to the area of interest, right, where the surgery is happening. And if you put a 3D model as well inside that area, it's not going to be that clear. We did another project that was with colon surgery, where they tried putting the main arteries of the colon, because it was colon surgery, so you had to cut part of the colon. So they tried to put exactly inside the patient where the arteries are, so they can go directly to the part from outside. Otherwise, it takes much more time for that surgery. So in that, we found that the visualization was not that perfect, but still the surgeons were happy. I think they just wanted to see, they just were excited about making things happen, right? But I think technically it needs to be better. Yes.
Thank you.
Just one quick, so are they not following, for example, DICOM standards when it comes to the viewing environment and where the display is, or calibrating and characterizing the display where they see the scenes, what the camera is showing?
No, because the DICOM is in the actual image, right? And what we do is that for anonymization purposes, we immediately, before working on the image, we anonymize in such a way that we take it from DICOM to Nifty formats where there is no meta formats.
Okay.
So we don't have any information about the how it was handled. But even if you have the DICOM, you still need all the tracking information to put it in place. Because the patient might be in a different way where the actual image is taken and how is on the surgery table.
Yeah.
So it's still needed.
Hi Rahul, thank you for the presentation. Uh, could you please suggest some tools that can be used to visualize this data? Openly available tools,
Visualize which data, sorry?
like 3D data.
How to visualize the 3D data?
Yeah, yes.
You mean in mixed reality or?
No,
just visualize?
in a normal.
Yeah, because you have open source softwares like 3D Slicer, ITK Snap. These are completely open source. You can download it anywhere. All medical images can be visualized there. There is also ImageJ.
Okay.
And
Java based.
Java based,
Yes.
exactly. So all these softwares can be used. I think more than ImageJ, these ITK Snap and 3D Slices are better. It
Okay.
gives a much better three-dimensional visualization. If you have a segmentation, you can do the segmentations in there itself, most of it. 3D Slicer even has automatic AI algorithms there
Okay.
where you can use. And you can visualize the 3D models directly there.
Okay.
Hi, sir. That was an excellent presentation, sir. I just want to know if this kind of setup can work in emergency situations. Like, I agree that this is restricted to heart and liver, but what if the organ is brain? Like sudden emergency situation like accident cases or aneurysm detection. In that case, there is no a time window for a planning setup. No? Like the doctors can't sit and you cannot plan beforehand. That is an emergency situation. So in that case, will that work or what is the relevance? I just want to know, sir.
It's actually a good question because all the things that I said, that is the planning, the segmentations, planning, all that takes time. So even if it can be even if with AI, you just need maybe 15 minutes or half an hour, maybe in emergency situations that's not enough. But what could be done is that in emergency situations you can have like the one that I said, like live echocardiograms visualized in 3D Slicer or something, in HoloLens. Like those kind of things. If you have AI algorithms that could be put inside there, that automatic takes in. But there is no such methods out there yet. Just saying what if, right? If it could be done, that could be useful. And also the navigation systems. If you have like already in the operating room, you have all the systems ready, everything tested, right? If a patient comes in immediately and if an image is already taken, you can just you can just try any kind of segmentation that could be done fast, like AI algorithms. That's done in seconds now, right? You take 3D model, directly put in without correcting or anything. But so if you have AI algorithms that are really perfect, and if you have everything set up from before, you have an operating theater that is set up from before, it could be done. But there is a lot of ifs there.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul, for putting on screen the beautiful organs. Your statement on the design of heart was appreciable. That was the beautiful organ, right? That was your statement, yeah. So my question is something related to the previous question asked by the lady. Each model is patient specific, right?
Yes.
So whether it be liver or heart. So what is the scope for generalizing maybe the major part of this and make it more faster, right? And second question could be related to the heart. So are you assuming that heart is stopped during the surgery, or it is still beating, and then the fourth dimension, how you are incorporating that in the model. Yeah.
So, thanks for the questions. The first question, we are trying not to do that actually, to be frank, because all of this was to do as much as patient-specific model as possible. Because you can have atlas models of how organs should be, right? And you can go with that and maybe even have some examples of how the anomaly should be. But both these cases, you don't know exactly where the tumor is exactly, right? It has to be patient specific. You need to understand exactly where the tumor is, and the surgery could be done only understanding that. And for the heart, it's even more complicated because it's a congenital case where it could be many different ways. There are like 1,000 different varieties of it, as I heard. So you need to understand exactly how that particular case is. So it's a very patient specific. So we had not thought about going away from that actually. But as I said, for navigation purposes, just to put in images, you can use images that are already there. That could be done. The second question. Sorry, what was the second question?
Yeah, the heart. Yeah, the
For
fourth
the second,
dimension.
the 4D part of it is actually more tricky because you need to have imaging systems at that time. What we are trying with the navigation systems is that even though if it's not beating, like for the surgery, maybe you'll have to stop. You have to put in a heart-lung machine or something, right? But the heart is deformed. But can you actually at that time do an intraoperative imaging, ultrasound or CT or something, whatever is available, and then register for that particular time and just replan? That's something we look at. But beating heart, you need to have much better dynamic imaging possibilities, which is still a problem. Maybe in the future.
Rahul, it was really a wonderful presentation, so I really enjoyed. There's many questions you have already answered, so I have one question regarding the quantitative analysis that you have done. If you look at the dice values that you've used, most of the time I think you have represented the mean values, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in some slides, I think I saw the variance is also a little bit higher in some cases, right?
Here?
Yeah, I think here, I think I've noticed that somewhere. So how you normally deal with that variance among the different outputs? Because you take the mean values, right, of the dice. So sometimes there may be some variations there.
Yeah.
So we can make sure that this will be very low.
Actually, it would have been better if you take a median or a mode or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
In this case, for sure, I agree with you on that actually. But we went for mean, which is much more understandable to most of the people.
Yeah, that's
right?
it.
You understand that. But and here, we also took the mean just to understand on a general level how it is. There are outliers for sure, but on a general level, how it is.
Yeah, fine, thank you.
Actually, just an invitation to say a little bit more about how ready this technology for marketing, because I know that there is a company that adopted quite a lot of these algorithms into a product or products.
Actually, I forgot to mention that actually. It was, thanks for pointing that out, because as all the presenters said yesterday, and also what you both said yesterday, right? There is a huge need on taking it as a product and taking it into the industry, because only then it could be taken into actual clinical purposes, because they'll have to look at all the legal sides of it and how to make it into a product, how to take it into a market. And all the things that I mentioned here in the mixed reality part, we have a company called HoloCare, which is a private public company, which looks at all of that, looking at the legal aspects, and will be taking it to the market, such that there will be a cloud solution where anyone, even here, doctors can actually upload the models, make AI results of the liver, heart, and so on, and then that results could be edited then and there in the cloud, and actually could be loaded directly into the HoloLens if they have any, right? And then visualized for surgery planning, slicing tool in heart, for instance, CT visualizations, MR visualization, all this could be done. And we have a company working on that. And I have to stress, because initially I was like, okay, we could just, I was not thinking on the company aspect before, right? And but then we understood that to go through all the regulations, it's not a researcher's job. You cannot work on that. So you need to have a company behind who can take the product forward. I'll see if I can connect the demo if we have time, or otherwise we can just move forward. How do we want that? Santosh? It might take some time actually, though. Should I do a demo, or it might take some time to connect? Or it's hard. Yes. Yeah, maybe it's good to have a break now. I'll just try to set it up. Yeah, great.
Everyone, let's just have a quick break and be back in 12. Thank you.